In terms of being educational, Clifford's Fun with Letters definitely delivers. But in terms of being a decent production, it's not very good. This was released originally in 1988. I'll be honest, I had no idea Clifford was that old. I had assumed it was something that was born late 90s, early 90s when I started watching it. So I do have to take that with a pinch of salt, that it's not quite the quality of the TV show episodes we got, but it does predate that. Obviously, I know there are books, but I just thought or assumed incorrectly that the, I think, 2000 TV series was the first adaptation. So it told me something, if nothing else. This is directed by Kate Shepard, and Clifford and Emily Elizabeth want to go to the circus, but it costs, I think, 50 cents if I remember. And they decide to start a messaging service to earn some money. Now, I was disappointed that it was called a message service and not a letter service, because that would have made a lot more sense since this is all about letters and people phone them up, deliver a message, and then Clifford and Emily Elizabeth write the message down, and Clifford goes off to deliver it on a piece of paper. And the educational element is definitely there. We get close-ups of the messages. The messages are usually only, a couple of words long. They're not complex sentences. It's clear and easy to see the words on the screen. And it actually goes quite advanced. It talks about plurals at one point and how two words can join to make one word. I think the example in this one was in and two separate words that can join to make the word into. So it's actually a lot more detailed than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be very much a kind of ABCs thing rather than going into things a little bit more complex, which I appreciate. I think there's something in there for a wide age range of children, which makes it really much more beneficial than if it had just been, one end of the extreme or the other. So absolutely, in terms of being educational, which I guess is its primary purpose, it ticks all of the boxes. But the production value just seems really cheap, and I have to say I don't like Clifford having a voice. I'll be honest, the voice acting sounds like somebody is acting, which I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but when you tell somebody to put on a voice and they do this deep talking out the back of their throat thing, that was a terrible interpretation. But when they kind of talk out the back of their throat as if they're putting on a deep, gruff voice, and that's what it sounded like. It didn't sound like it was a voice of the dog. It sounded like somebody was acting the character. And that really bothered me and it really annoyed me. And I don't know why it was so bad. The rest of the voice acting was absolutely fine. It just, when you couple that with some quite cheap looking animation, and this is cheap looking even for the 80s, it just felt like a really poor production quality. But if it's educational, then I will let that slide. I feel like its first purpose is to teach children about letters, about words. Its second purpose is to be entertaining, visually engaging, with some good voice acting. If I had to let something slide, I'm glad it's not the educational value. So for me, watching it as a fan of Clifford growing up, looking for that nostalgia of the character, I didn't enjoy it at all. But in terms of being educational, I think it worked. It may not be perfect, but if it gets any children thinking about words and letters, I'm still annoyed they didn't call it a letter service and not a message service. That's such a missed opportunity. But if only that was the worst thing about this. It's not great, but it's educational, so I can't complain too much.